Welcome back to another Valley Sports Plug Arizona Cardinals recap for Week 16. On December 25th, 2022, the Arizona Cardinals back at home taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's Christmas Day, baby, so let's get into it. The Cardinals would take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to overtime, but failing to secure the victory, losing 19-16. The Bucs will advance to 7-8, while the Cardinals fall to 4-11 on the season. Important to note that's 1-8 at home on the season. So let's look at some stats from today's game. The Arizona Cardinals giving Trace McSorley the start, completing 24 passes on 45 attempts, 217 yards and an interception. James Conner, 15 carries for 79 yards and the only touchdown for the Cardinals. Greg Dortch would have 10 receptions for 98 yards. Marquise Brown hauling in 3 for 57 yards. And James Conner doing it all with 7 receptions for 41 yards to go along with his carrying numbers. Important to point out that DeAndre Hopkins only got 1 reception for 4 yards, despite many targets. It looks like 10 targets in this game. So not quite what we wanted to see from DeAndre Hopkins today. On the other side, the veteran Tom Brady for the Buccaneers getting the start at QB, 32 completions on 48 attempts, 281 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Leonard Fournette would have 20 carries for 72 yards. Rachaad White would have 7 carries for 36 yards. Rachaad White would also have 4 receptions for 17 yards and the Buccaneers' only touchdown on the game. For Leonard Fournette, he would have 9 receptions as well for 90 yards. The Buccaneers running backs were killing this game, both on the ground and through the air. Russell Gage would have 5 receptions for 65 yards, and Chris Godwin, 8 receptions for 63 yards. With that being said, let's take a look at how the scoring broke down in this game. In the first quarter, Ryan Succop would get things started for the Buccaneers with a 38-yard field goal. Matt Prater would answer back towards the end of the quarter with his own 56-yard field goal to tie the game up 3-3. Going down to the second quarter, Ryan Succop would hit another field goal. Now we're at 6-3. And right again, Matt Prater answering with an even further field goal at 53 yards, making it 6-6 going into the half. Now, no points scored in the third quarter, so we'll jump ahead to the fourth quarter. Matt Prater would give the Cardinals their first lead of the game, making it 6-9 with a 39-yard field goal. Later on, James Conner would run in a 22-yard run to make it 16-6 for the Cardinals. Rachaad White would score a touchdown for Tampa Bay, making it 13-6 as they closed in. And to finish out the fourth quarter, Ryan Succop would tie the game up, making it 16-16. Now we're in overtime. The Cardinals had a chance, but ended up having to give it back to the Buccaneers, who would get the job done. Tom Brady surgically slicing up the Cardinals defense, which resulted in a 40-yard Ryan Succop field goal, which gave the Buccaneers the 19-16 victory over the Cardinals. Oh man, Mike. I know I was on the edge of my seat the whole fourth quarter and overtime. I want to get your perspective on the game and what you saw today.
Yeah, first and foremost, I mean, a lot of teams already know this, but good old Tommy Boy strikes again. I believe he has 57 game-winning drives in either regular session or overtime. I mean, that's what happens when you play for 23 years and you're the GOAT, so not surprised. But today I'm going to take a piece, or I'm going to take a note out of Tallman's book, and I'm going to go with the positives first. You know, we had some gadget plays work today. You know, Sean Lee's throwing for a first down off a fake punt. Some of our Wildcat direct snaps were actually working. James Conner, he's going to be a workhorse these next 2 games. He's going to win a lot of teams some fantasy leagues next week. So if you got him, you know, ride that wave down towards the end, because he's going to be featured all the way to the end. J.J. Watt has been looking great the last 2 weeks. Obviously, I think he came out as the joke and said he got drug tested last week after his 3-sack performance. Might happen again this week. He was all over the field in the backfield making plays. Same with Cameron Thomas, you know, a new rookie defensive end. J.J. Watt's taking him under his wing, and he was making really big impacts with consistent pressure, which this team has been missing all year. You know, Isaiah Simmons, they gave him a little shout out when he stuck with Scotty Miller going down the field. That ball almost could have been intercepted. I think funny thing, though, is the next play they came down and Leonard Fournette took a 12-yard run for a first down. Isaiah Simmons took the wrong gap, but that's besides the point. We're still in the positives right now, Chris. This defense held its own, right? The Bucs were having to rely on the run and those screen plays because they didn't trust their pass protection. Our guys were getting there. And, we saw that in that first lofted interception to Marco Wilson when he was guarding Mike Evans. And, Mike Evans hasn't scored in 10 weeks. If the Bucs make the playoffs, which it seems like they will, they got to put it together quickly or else it's going to be an early exit for them. But, giving some flowers out. Shout out Marco Wilson with his 2 picks. That second one was a horrible read by Tom Brady, but you take advantage of those. And we actually scored points off of that second one, which we couldn't off of his first interception. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a touchdown, but we'll take points. That's what you got to do there. Going down the stretch in that game, Hollywood Brown had a huge jump ball play. That's what we brought him in for. That's what we thought we were going to see most of this entire year from him. Zaven Collins taking that next step, having a huge breakup on a 3rd and 2 to give us the ball back, which ended up being that Pharaoh Cooper, you'd call it Triple H, the human hurdle highlight. What a play, man. We don't get to see those often. But shout out Pharaoh Cooper. That was such a huge momentum play, which ended up leading into that Connor touchdown and giving us the 10-point lead, right? And then down towards the end, when they did eventually come back, the Bucs were moving down the field, but we held strong. We were keeping 5 to 6 guys in underneath coverage, and Jalen Thompson had a huge breakup. And I thought he was injured. It looked like he got injured again on a later play as well, but to stick it out there and to make such a huge play to keep your team within a game. That's what this defense has done all year, right? And we have a chance on the last drive. Hopkins is clearly interfered with. But when you're a bad team, you're not really going to get those calls, right? And the other thing that was a positive, it was great to hear chants of defense while the Buccaneers have the ball, right? Not just our home field getting drowned out by opposing fans. It was finally nice to hear some Cardinals fans getting out there and rallying behind this team. But we lost this game, so there's some negatives. First and foremost, our buddy Billy Price making a negative appearance on the first play of trying to get that game-winning drive. It was kind of inconsequential down the stretch, but the 2 biggest things out of this game, Chris, is the inability to get DeAndre Hopkins the ball. He had 5 targets in the first half. All of those were McSorley's fault, and he had 10 total targets. So it wasn't like he wasn't getting looked at. But, to not have any targets in the 3rd quarter and have your first one be your first catch with 8 minutes left in the 4th quarter, how are we not trying that earlier in our second drive? Exactly what they did for him. Get that screen pass out to the side, get him 4 yards, get him the ball, get him some momentum going. Then we can try and get him into space. One thing I will say, though, is some of those routes that Hopkins were running is he was kind of lazy on him and he was pulling up too short. So he wasn't helping his quarterback out, but I'm still going to put it on McSorley. He couldn't place the ball to save his life anywhere. And that goes into my final point. Keontae Ingram, poor guy, the rookie, he fumbles the ball, which ends up not ending the game, but that's where it turned. And the Buccaneers basically took over from them. But that was one of the worst pitches I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he rocket shotted it at his face mask. I don't think anybody would have been able to get that. And then the fact of the matter is, Chris, unfortunately, Trace McSorley, he's just outmatched at the NFL level. It doesn't seem like he has enough zip on the ball most of the time. Balls are just being floated. 60 yards down the field, I would expect any NFL quarterback to be able to, if you're trying to Hail Mary, to get it into the end zone. That's just kind of a must. Obviously, you're not throwing 60-yard bombs all the time, but if you don't have the arm to get it there, I don't know if you deserve to be on the field. And then the other thing is he doesn't read progressions at all. Chris Collinsworth was talking about that, and he literally would just look for the check down as his first read. He wouldn't let things develop. But obviously the offensive line has had its woes, blah, 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 blah. But you have to go off of what you saw today. And I'm not putting all the blame on Trace McSorley. But, he was a big contributor. And I guess, as Tallman would say, it's good that we lost, right? We get to keep our seeding and possibly, strengthen where we're going to finish up at in hopefully a top 3 pick at this point. Wins aren't going
Mhm.
to really do any service as far as what you get in the draft. But this is one of those games that's so disheartening for those group of guys that have been riding through this terrible season. Guys like Buda Baker, guys like Jalen Thompson, even those younger guys like Zayvon Collins and Isaiah Simmons. They've been leaving it all out there on the field, and to not be able to pull out this kind of a game is always a gut wrencher. And, a lot of those guys aren't going to have the ability to play Tom Brady again. So this was your one chance, and you really had that opportunity to steal one from them and maybe put their playoff chances on the ropes. But this team is where it's at, 4-11, looking for a top 3 pick, and so on and so forth, baby. That's how the cookie crumbles.
We're just gonna have to see with the Cardinals. I mean, you make a lot of great points. I don't want to really pile on to a third string quarterback, and I am going to criticize him, so I'm going to immediately contradict myself. But first, before I go into all of that, Mike, I got to ask you and the viewers watching, do you know what Trace McSorley, Tom Brady, and Kyler Murray all have in common?
They all grew up in the Midwest. I don't know. No, I don't have that answer.
All good. It's not a joke either. They were all born in the month of August.
Well, there
I
you
looked
go.
that up because wanted to see how old Trace McSorley was. He's 27, which is 2 years older than our starting quarterback, Kyler Murray, who is 25, but 18 years younger than the Buccaneers starting quarterback, Tom Brady, who is 45 years old. So it was just crazy thinking about how Trace McSorley, obviously, as a teenager and a kid, probably watched Tom Brady, might have looked up to Tom Brady, and now here he is playing against him. And I got to thinking about that because during the broadcast, Chris Collinsworth made a comment about, oh, this kid is playing Tom Brady, and it's so cool for him. And it's like this kid, the 27-year-old who's older than Kyler Murray. So it's like Kyler Murray is also a kid if that's the standard. So it is still crazy, though. I think that's insane that you can have a 20-year gap where a guy is literally playing the amount of years as a kid can remember. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, I just thought that was a fun fact. They were all born in August. But yeah, man, on Trace McSorley, he's just throwing it into the ground on every pass. It seemed like he didn't have much accuracy. Hopkins was always bending and twisting or reaching and extending to try and make insanely bad passes work, and I just didn't see him falling. And this time, I can't even blame Cliff. I mean, there were some play calls where I kind of rolled my eyes like, oh, great. Yeah, you tried the screen pass on first down, and then you try to run into an obvious blitz on second down. So now here we are, 3rd and 11, and we got nothing going for us. It's just they put themselves in a tough position every time. And it really showed in the numbers where we didn't get as many first downs as the Buccaneers did when they weren't even playing good until the last 10 minutes of the game. And like you said, that pitch by Trace McSorley, did he even look where he was pitching it? Like it felt like he did everything so quick. Like everything was like real twitchy and real like nervous, where his decisions, like, oh, I'm going to put it on the ground, I'm going to go real hard into it, oh, I'm going to pass it. He, like, not to say like you can't pass it, like it just looked like desperate almost. In retrospect, it's a third string quarterback where for all intents and purposes tanking at this point. To Tallman's point and your point, we're 4th in line for the number 4 draft pick right now. Our stock's only going up, if that's how you want to look at it. And it's just, I don't think there's any urgency to get Colt back out there. Obviously, Kyler, I think we got the news today, he's undergoing his surgery on the 3rd. So he's still targeting, I think, week 1 to be able to come back. But we'll see. I mean, that's a long road and a lot of unknowns right now. So a lot we're going to be looking at and talking about when it comes to this team. And I was just thinking, even just today, as I was watching these football games in the holidays, like how interesting it's going to be, these conversations we have during the off season, where I feel like we came into this season with a lot of optimism and a lot of high expectations for this team making the playoffs. I don't think any of us wrote this team into the Super Bowl, but we wanted us to be contending for that and in the hunt for it. And now here we are in the complete opposite situation. It's just, I don't think it's where any Cardinals fan thought that we would be. And it really sucks, but this is where you find out who the true Cardinals fans are. And you can say this is a call out, but we're going to continue to ride with this team through thick and thin. And we'll be critical when we're doing good, we'll be critical when we're doing bad, and we'll be critical when we're doing mediocre. But we're always going to be honest, and we're going to give you our take and perspective on the team. And just again, today, it's funny not getting it done. One other last anecdote I'll share is I placed a wager for the 3 games today for all the underdogs to win, the Packers, the Rams, and the Cardinals. And after the first 2 games ended and those teams won, I texted Tallman and Mike here and asked if I should cash out or let it ride. And they both said, cash it out, cash it out. And I was like, I don't know. I wanted to have like a sliver of faith. But I ultimately cashed it out, but I hedged a little bit. I replaced another smaller bet on the Cardinals to win, but obviously you guys know how that ended. And I was kind of sweating there a little bit when I thought the Cardinals might pull it out when they were up a couple scores. But, yet again, here we are. We know what happened. And we got a few more weeks left of these recaps, so make sure you keep tuning in. Make sure you're also following us on all of our social medias at AZ_VSP, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Valley Sports Plug on YouTube and Facebook. You will check out all of our live streams there. We got Heat Check Podcast, Pass the Outlet, Roundtables, you name it. You want it, you got it. Anyway, for Michael Benjamin, I'm Chris Patrick. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Merry Christmas. We will see you next time. Peace.